Hello, hello. Hi, gang. Hi, everybody. Happy Monday. Thank you to my friends at Parks Casino. I really appreciate you, Parks Casino, for sponsoring the daily poll question. Parks Casino is my casino of choice. They've got it all: action, excitement, headline, entertainment, right in the Philly burbs, 90 minutes from New York, exit 6 off the Jersey Turnpike, PA's #1 casino. So much going on under that roof: hot slots, state-of-the-art sports book, beautiful poker room, all-weather beer garden, collection of award-winning restaurants. Parks Casino, this is how you win. And for mingling opportunities, get out and watch some live entertainment. Just announced comedian Brian Regan. That's November 22nd. Wow, that's a long way off, or isn't it? Comedian Russell Peters, September 27. May 16, Larry the Cable Guy. May 30, country artist Ashley McBride, The Sounds of Taj Mahal and Kebmo. Clutch in concert, Gary Clark Jr., comedian Mark Normand, KC and the Sunshine Band. And September 6th, the English reggae and pop band UB40. I told you last week I went through a UB40 phase. It finally occurred to me, when was that? Late 80s, like 87, 88-ish, UB40. Yeah, me back in the day. Hysterical. Dinner and drinks before the show, Liberty Bell Gastro Pub. They've got it all going on. ParksCasino.com to get all your tickets. This is how you win. You got to be 21. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. So today's poll question at Smerconish.com, the Monday poll question. I'm asking you to answer a question raised by RFK Jr. in his first sit-down interview with one of the networks, CBS. Quote, if you're smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day, should you expect society to pay when you get sick? He raised the question. I'd like you to answer it. By the way, in today's Monday edition of the newsletter, check out the story from Fox, which Subruters what went on Saturday night at a UFC match in Miami, where it looks like President Trump snubs Cheryl Hines, Bobby's wife, as in Cheryl of Curb fame, who I just love her work and have been thrilled to interview on both radio and television. It seems pretty clear. I know I'm off message a little bit, doing the weave. It seems pretty clear that when Trump, enters that front row area, Elon Musk is there. Musk has one of his kids there. Bobby is there. Trump warmly greets Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but Cheryl extends a hand and Trump bypasses her. Like maybe something happened that we can't see, because he's been gracious to her despite things that she said during the course of the campaign. But Fox now posts additional still photographs. I'd love to see the remainder of the video where it seems like Trump then circles back or Bobby brings Cheryl over, but they have a conversation. Anyway, related, but that's not the poll question. This is the poll question. Bobby says, if you're smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day, should you expect society to pay when you get sick? This is the interview that he did with the CBS News medical correspondent, a physician, John LaPook. And then he goes on to say that it is an American's choice to eat donuts all day or drink soda. He promised not to take those choices away, but immediately people say, oh my God, Medicare and Medicaid, they're going to impose limits now if you eat donuts or drink soda and if obesity is an issue. That's not what he said. If you watch it, and I'll play the audio on radio today, but it's more of a, I don't know, philosophical doesn't seem the right word, but a conversation where Kennedy is exploring the extent to which society ought to be paying for risky behavior. And we've had these conversations on radio many, many times. Quote, in terms of, should you then expect society to care for you when you predictably get very sick at the same level as somebody else who was born with a congenital illness? In other words, he's saying one person's born with a condition, and of course we're going to take care of them, but somebody else, their behavior is what causes their malady, and it's all predictable, so why should society pay? Though he did not explicitly suggest limiting Medicaid benefits for those engaging in behaviors deemed risky or unhealthy, his comments have touched off a firestorm. Joan Alker is the executive director and co-founder of the Center for Children and Families at Georgetown, and said his comments could be interpreted as advocating that, quote, Kennedy's ideas are predicated on the notion of extraordinarily intrusive government getting into every aspect of your life. Where does it stop? Right. The slippery slope argument. Is the government now going to say anybody who drinks any alcohol, since there's more evidence coming out that it's a carcinogen, or anybody who eats any sugar? Why would we stop at donuts and cigarettes? By the way, if you want a contrarian viewpoint, and hopefully you do before you vote on the poll question, at the Cato Institute, which is a libertarian think tank, Michael Cannon is the director of health policy studies, and he says the Constitution doesn't say anything about health, much less donuts and cigarettes. People should bear the cost of their own unhealthy decisions, not just because it's wrong to force other people to bear those costs, but because then they're less likely to make unhealthy decisions. So you get the arguments. You know, if you're answering Bobby's question, yes, then you're saying healthcare is a human right. You're saying addiction and unhealthy habits often stem from deeper issues. Could be trauma, could be poverty, could be mental illness. You're also saying prevention and education are the answer, not punishment. They are the keys to better public health, et cetera, et cetera. If you're answering that question, no, you're saying, as the libertarian did, taxpayers shouldn't be financially responsible for chronic self-inflicted health problems. Personal responsibility matters, and public systems are already strained. Incentivizing healthier behavior could save money and lives. So it's a great question. We've had similar conversations in the past. Make sure you're voting on today's poll question at Smerconish.com. Answer the question that Robert F. Kennedy raised. If you're smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day, should you expect society to pay when you get sick? My answer is yes, unless you're prepared to extend that logic to all forms of human factors and human behavior. Can I just talk a little bit about recent poll questions, because we've had some really interesting and fun stuff. Friday, we did the whole dire wolves, Jurassic Park conversation with Professor Dr. Robert Klitzman from Columbia. Should humans pursue the de-extinction of species like the dire wolf? We had 31,000 and change voting. 64%, let's call it roughly 2/3, said no. No, we don't want humans pursuing the de-extinction of species like the dire wolf. I don't know how we stop it. I don't know how you regulate it, because we can come up with any standard we'd like in the United States, but who's to say in some Chinese or Russian or North Korean lab, they don't decide to do exactly that? We're not going to be able to stop them. It's just like artificial intelligence. You know, these issues know no borders or boundaries. Saturday poll question. Love it. 60,238 votes cast. If the United States brings back manufacturing, will Americans be willing and able to fill those jobs? 86.7% of us said no. I had a commentary that I was really proud of on CNN on Saturday, where I addressed these issues. And the argument that I made, much as I've made here on YouTube and on POTUS and in the podcast, I've made it everywhere, is that we've got a more deep-seated issue. Deep-seated or seated? Seated or seated? We've got a deep issue, and it pertains mostly to our young men, but by extension to our young women. It's the labor force participation that we need to pay attention to, not just the unemployment rate, because the labor force participation rate has diminished significantly since the 1980s. A significant number of men have just checked out, and we're pretty much at full employment. So consequently, if Donald Trump's vision of returning manufacturing jobs were to bear fruit, and by the way, just think about it practically. I'm all for the objective, just not the way he's going about it, which I'm getting used to saying. I'm all for trying to enhance America's manufacturing base. I just don't think those jobs are coming back in any great number. And if they were to, It'll happen on JD Vance's watch. It'll happen on President Harris's watch. It takes years to re-engineer corporate America, foreign entities to make decisions, to relocate, buy the land, build a plant. That doesn't happen overnight. And even if it were to happen, what makes us think that with our diminished labor force participation, we're going to fill those jobs? I don't think we will. So many manufacturing and manual labor jobs today are unfilled. And then getting into the subject matter conversation that I had with Scott Galloway and Anthony Scaramucci, we have a problem with our young men. So many of them are struggling in comparison to the way that women are doing. And women are not interested. I have data to back up all of this. Look at the mingle links on the Smerconish.com website. Women are not interested in marrying men of the same age, younger women, because they're struggling. So by extension, our women are impacted as well. And the public conversation that we need to be having, which I had on CNN with Scott Galloway and Anthony Scaramucci, who are about to launch a podcast solely focused on this, is how we do better for our men. Not in a misogynistic way. We're not talking about toxic masculinity. We're talking about inspiring young men. So it was really a good conversation, I thought, that I had with Scott and with Anthony Scaramucci, and I'm looking forward to their podcast. Sunday poll question. This is probably my favorite of the last couple of days. And on radio today, we'll be playing all the audio that corresponds with what this question addressed. Agree or disagree with Bill Maher? A crazy person doesn't live in the White House. A person who plays a crazy person on TV a lot lives there. We had nearly 35,000 votes on the Sunday poll question, 62% and change disagreed with Bill Maher, 37% plus agreed with Bill Maher. And it's Maher in his Friday night program, in his monologue, taking about 10 minutes to explain what happened when, with Kid Rock and Dana White from UFC, he had dinner with Donald Trump by now about 2 weeks ago. And it's really interesting. And in a more limited extent, I've had the same experience with Trump, who in person can be engaging, charming, ribald. You'd expect that. And funny. And so Maher came on TV and he explained this. And I loved the way he began his recap by saying, let me first say to all the people who treated this like it was some kind of a summit meeting, you are ridiculous. Like I was going to sign a treaty or something. I have no power. I'm an effing comedian. He's the most powerful leader in the world. I'm not the leader of anything. And then, wait for it, except maybe a contingent of centrist-minded people who think there's got to be a better way of running this country than hating each other every minute. Well, count me in for that. And Maher is not throwing his opposition to the wayside. He's just recounting what was seemingly a fun dinner, and one in which he got to express himself, including where he disagrees with Donald Trump. And Bill Maher went on to say that even though he voted for Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, in fact, I remember him giving $1 million to Obama. He could never have had this kind of a frank exchange with Trump, and he appreciated that. But the blowback that I've read, and some of which he got from Josh Rogan, who was one of the panelists that night after he did the opening commentary, I find distressing. It's like, oh, how could you? And, unless he need Trump in the groin, some people just don't want to hear it. You're normalizing him. I mean, a lot of the phone calls that I get on a day-to-day basis. And then Maher wrapping up, he said, I'm just reporting exactly what I saw over 2.5 hours. I went into the mine. And what's down there? A crazy person doesn't live in the White House. A person who plays a crazy person on TV a lot lives there, which I know is effed up. It's just not as effed up as I thought it was. And I have no illusion now that I'm back to work at my job that he might start a new list, a new complaint list about him. because I don't have a good feeling and will be critical about a lot of what he's doing. And then he goes on to lay out the things that he's critical of. I appreciated it. I really did. And Maher talks about how he flew home that night and gets into bed and is getting caught up on social media and some of the Trump news of the day, and Trump is back to being the crazy person. But it's not what he saw. And of course, it begs the question, and I read one of these social media responses. Well, why can't the rest of us see that all the time? That's a great question, and one that I'll explore on radio today. Why can't the world see what Bill Maher saw? And Maher concluded by saying, that's my report. You can hate me for it. I'm not a liar. Trump is gracious and measured. And why he isn't that in other settings, I don't know, and I can't answer. It's not my place to answer. I'm telling you what I saw, and I wasn't high, which he then described as a missed opportunity. Please go vote on the Bobby Kennedy question, on the Robert F. Kennedy question. He raised an interesting question, had a conversation with the CBS medical correspondent, wasn't saying this is what we're doing, but it's a great conversation starter. Really a good conversation starter. Thank you, gang. Thank you. Go vote at Smerconish.com. Please like and subscribe and set yourself up for notifications. I'll see you soon on radio, I hope.